We begin with that breaking news we mentioned out of Tokyo this morning. Olympic champion Simone Biles making the shocking decision to withdraw from the all-around competition a day after dropping out of the team finals.
NBC News senior international correspondent Keir Simmons joins us now from Tokyo. Keir, what's the latest on Simone, how she's doing, and what is USA Gymnastics saying this morning?
Well, Vicky, Savannah, I think this morning it's just impressive that Simone Biles has been making statements, and we saw her there supporting her team when after she'd withdrawn from that team final. So people are talking about just what a statesperson she is being. Meanwhile, USA Gymnastics now saying she will not compete in tomorrow's final individual all-round competition, and that she will be evaluated daily to see whether she will in fact take part in the individual event final next week. Meanwhile, the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee saying in a statement to Simone Biles, you have made us proud. We applaud your decision to prioritize your mental wellness over all else and offer you the full support and resources of our Team USA community as you navigate the journey ahead, guys.
Gosh, hearing them say they're proud of her just means so much, especially with what she told our colleague Hoda Kotb yesterday. It was so heartbreaking when she said, we hope America still loves us. I mean, to hear her, the organization getting behind her is really great. So tell us more about what we have heard from Simone herself since withdrawing from the team competition. Now we have this news, the all-around individual. What's she saying so far? What do we know from Simone herself?
Yeah, it's just really kind of impressive how open she is being, saying that she has been fighting demons, saying that maybe it's her age, but that she just feels like she doesn't trust herself in the same way anymore, that she's just not having fun anymore. Really, in her own words, a heartbreaking commentary on the amount of pressure that she's been under, guys, and a window into how hard it was to walk into that competition with so much expectation. So, you know, we will see how she does in the days ahead and whether she can get past this or whether, in fact, it is, you know, kind of more than that. But again, impressive the way she is handling it, guys.
Keir, you think about the pressure. We talked about this, Savannah. It's not just gymnastics, which we know can be a pressure cooker, but now we're talking about the Olympics, which comes every 4 years. We know that these other athletes, in addition to Simone, Naomi Osaka has been really open about speaking on their mental health struggles. Do you think this is opening up the conversation for others, that it's okay to not be okay?
That's what others are saying. Look, other athletes are supporting Simone Biles and at the same time saying that they are glad that this conversation is happening, talking again about just how much pressure athletes can be under, saying, please, folks, remember that athletes are humans. So, yeah, that if you want to listen to other athletes, that's what they're saying, that this is opening up a conversation and a conversation that is definitely worth having, guys.
Absolutely. Also, Vicky and I were talking this morning that it's, of course, so neat, all the commentators we have on NBC who have actually participated in these sports, who are saying what they're seeing. And Nastia Lukin noting that when she did that vault, which was afterwards where we weren't sure if she was hurt or what had happened, that she said, I can see from knowing what she's actually doing that she didn't know where she was in the air. I mean, that's actually dangerous.
How threatening is that, right? To physically not know. She called it the twisties. But we're talking about so much more here. We don't know what's going on right now in Simone Biles' mind. But for her to be so open at this point, I think it's going to be a seminal moment for Olympics and for these athletes.
Absolutely. Good to have this conversation. Keir, thank you so much.
Keir, thank you. Now we turn to the emotional hearing on Capitol Hill as the House Select Committee held its first hearing on the January 6th attack. 4 Capitol Hill police officers who defended the Capitol against the violent mob testified during that hearing, speaking about the trauma they experienced. The January 6th Select Committee is made up of 7 Democrats and 2 Republicans who were all picked by Speaker Nancy Pelosi. The 2 GOP members were added after the Speaker rejected 2 of the 5 GOP members originally put forward by leader Kevin McCarthy. He then pulled all 5 of his picks. Footage of the brutal attacks was played throughout the hearing. We have to warn you that what you're about to see is disturbing. Now, this is never before seen body cam video. It shows rioters assaulting a Capitol police officer. The video was released as part of the government's evidence at the request of NBC News and other news organizations. The hearing lasted for about 3.5 hours. It was a day of dramatic and emotional testimony as officers recounted what happened at the Capitol that day. And a warning, what we're about to let you listen to is also upsetting.
When I was 25 years old and then a sergeant in the Army, I had deployed to Iraq for Operation Iraqi Freedom. From time to time, I volunteered to travel on IED-infested roads. But on January 6th, for the first time, I was more afraid to work at the Capitol than my entire deployment to Iraq.
I was grabbed, beaten, tased, all while being called a traitor to my country. I was at risk of being stripped of and killed with my own firearm as I heard chants of kill him with his own gun.
To my perpetual confusion, I saw the thin blue line flag, a symbol of support for law enforcement, more than once being carried by the terrorists as they ignored our commands and continued to assault us.
One woman in a pink MAGA shirt yelled, "You hear that, guys? This voted for Joe Biden." Then the crowd, perhaps around 20 people, joined in screaming, "Boo!" No one had ever called me a while wearing the uniform of a Capitol Police officer. More than 6 months later, January 6th still isn't over for me. I've had to avail myself of multiple counseling sessions from the Capitol Police Employee Assistance Program, and I'm now receiving private counseling therapy for the persistent emotional trauma of that day. I've also participated in many peer support programs with fellow law enforcement officers from around the United States. I know so many other officers continue to hurt, both physically and emotionally.
Let's bring in NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Leanne Caldwell. Leanne, it's so hard to hear some of that. Tell us more about what it was like inside the hearing room. I mean, us on TV watching, we know how emotional it was. What was it like in there?
Good morning, Savannah. It was very sad and very difficult scene inside that hearing room. Especially, it was obvious that these officers were still visibly hurt, traumatized, and angry. Angry, especially at there are members that they said there are members of the Republican Party and members of Congress who are denying, in fact, what happened on January 6th and what they went through on that day. So they were there to tell their stories and say that their stories are very real and it, in fact, did happen. And while their testimony was extremely difficult, when we saw that footage from their body cameras, that was the most intense, hard part of the hearing. Several of the officers would pick up Kleenexes, wipe their eyes. It was just a very emotionally draining day. Oh,
I bet. I mean, it was even just watching it. Leanne, as Vicki just laid out, we know there was drama to get to the point of who was even in that room. So Republican leader McCarthy, of course, pulled his members from the committee, leaving just 2 Republicans in the hearing who were selected by Speaker Pelosi. So let's talk through what we saw from Representative Liz Cheney and Representative Adam Kinzinger and how their fellow Republicans responded.
Yeah, well, it was interesting because in most hearings, Savannah, on Capitol Hill, you have Republicans pitted against the Democrats with different agendas and different objectives and different points of view. Well, yesterday, you had the 2 Republicans and the 7 Democrats all on the same team, all on the same page, trying to get the same outcome. But the only 2 who talked about the rest of the Republicans and Republican leadership were the 2 Republicans in the room, Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger. Let's play what Liz Cheney said, and we'll talk about it on the other side.
And the fact that so many members of our leadership and others, the fact that they've gone from recognizing what happened on the 6th to protesting in front of the Justice Department on behalf of those who were part of the insurrection is something that I can't explain. I think it's a disgrace, and I know that this committee will be focused on getting to the truth of what happened in a non-political, non-partisan way. This is not a political campaign. This is deadly serious, and we'll investigate every aspect.
So their colleagues, especially in Republican leadership, are calling them Pelosi Republicans or so-called Republicans. And so they are definitely causing a lot of waves and issues among the Republican conference, Savannah.
And Leanne, quickly, what's next for this committee?
Yeah, well, the House has a 7-week break starting on Friday, but the chair of the committee, Benny Thompson, told our colleague Garrett Hake yesterday that he could bring his committee members back in August, perhaps to hold another hearing. But we do know that there are many hearings planned and they have a lot of work to do. Liz Cheney said that she wants to know what happened every single moment of that day on January 6th at the White House. So they've just begun their investigation, Savannah.
All right, Leanne, thank you as always for your reporting.
And Capitol Hill will likely become a battleground for another issue this morning, a return to mask mandates. Masks are now required on the Hill and in other places across the country after the CDC released new guidance yesterday. The CDC is now recommending people wear masks indoors in areas where there's higher COVID transmission rates, even if people are fully vaccinated. Dr. Anthony Fauci explained the reason for the new guidance on Nightly News with Lester Holt last night.
The fact that even vaccinated people who have breakthrough infections now, although it is rare, no doubt about that vaccinated people who get breakthrough infections can actually transmit their virus to others.
NBC News correspondent Heidi Presbella is in Riverdale, Maryland this morning. It's an area where COVID cases are up more than 200%. Good morning, Heidi. A lot of confusion about this new guidance. Just a little over 2 months ago, the CDC said it was fine. Take off your mask if you're fully vaccinated. Now they're bringing the masks back. So where and when do people need to mask up? Clarify that.
And this is due to game-changing data that Dr. Fauci talked about, showing that those breakthrough cases can carry as much viral load as someone who is unvaccinated. Now, it's obvious that that is very rare, but still, because that is happening, they say that you need to mask up even the vaccinated individuals in areas with substantial and high levels of spread. So what does that mean? Look at the CDC map here of the United States, and you will see that it is bathed in red and orange now, a huge shift from just a few weeks ago. So these are all areas where the CDC is now recommending that states and localities ask individuals, all individuals, both vaccinated and unvaccinated, to mask up in order to prevent the immunocompromised, in order to prevent children who are unvaccinated. But it's very important to understand why this is happening. This is not happening because these breakthrough cases are causing a large number of infections. This is happening because people are not getting vaccinated. And the more people who don't get vaccinated, the more this virus spreads, the more this virus evolves, and the more it causes all of us to be more vulnerable.
Well, and also the more opportunity the virus has to mutate, which is what we're seeing in the Delta variant playing a big role because it's so much more infectious. The CDC is also recommending masks for K through 12 schools this fall, even for kids who have been vaccinated. You're right there outside a school in Maryland. What are you hearing about how they are handling the issue of masks?
School superintendent here actually made the decision last week, even before this new guidance came out, because he saw these numbers going up to about 200% increase just over the past couple of weeks, in the past 14 days. This is a decision, again, that is going to have to be made at the local level. This is an example of a superintendent being proactive. We have other examples around the country that also illustrate the challenges ahead. For instance, in 8 states, they've already said that schools cannot mandate masks. You're talking about many children here who are unvaccinated. For instance, even though children above the age of 12 are eligible for the vaccine, the data as it stands right now suggests that only about 13% of that population are vaccinated. So here we are coming back to school. Schools like this, districts like this may be making this decision, but out in Iowa or out in Oklahoma, where they've actually said you can't do that, this poses a real dilemma for those communities and potentially a lot of strife for parents who disagree.
Well, look, what we're hearing is that you can't mandate masks, but it leaves it up to the parents. If they want their children to wear a mask inside a classroom, there's nothing prohibiting them from doing that, right, Heidi?
Of course not. But the masking is to protect others. A lot of these cloth masks are simply so that if I'm wearing a cloth mask, I'm protecting you. if I'm wearing a respirator, I'm protecting myself. We are not sending children to school in respirators. So it's either one for all for one, so that I protect my child, protects your child protects my child.
All right, Heidi, thank you so much.
Let's now bring in Dr. Bob Lahita. He's a professor at the Hackensack Meridian School of Medicine and the director of the Institute for Autoimmune and Rheumatic Diseases at St. Joseph Health. Dr. Bob, as always, it's great to see you, but I wish it wasn't talking about these things that feel like we can't wake up from this bad dream. I mean, you've been a friend of this show for months. We've gone through this before. The CDC said fully vaccinated people can ditch masks in most settings in May, and now more than 60% of the country is being told to mask back up again. What do you make of this new guidance? Do you think people will listen? And what would be your message to people in those areas who are being told you should put a mask back on?
Well, Savannah, this is clearly a pandemic of the unvaccinated. And the key issue here is the non-vaccination of people. If people were vaccinated, and we only have 58% of the population that's eligible right now, the 58% got vaccinated, but the remainder of us have not been vaccinated. And that's the big problem. The caseload went up from 13,600 cases a day to now over 66,700 cases, mostly Delta variant. And it's occurring in the non-vaccinated. So you can see the concern of the CDC. We went from 3 million vaccinated people a day to less than 500,000 now. And it's largely, as you saw from the map, in the Midwest and in the South, Savannah.
Yeah. So, Dr. Bob, I mean, this is a tough situation because, as we just heard Heidi lay out very well, when you're wearing a mask, you're really sort of protecting other people. At least that's what we've been told. That's the way we understand this at this point. So if vaccinated people are putting a mask back on and their vaccine is protecting them, but they're wearing a mask to protect someone who potentially is unvaccinated, that's where this gets sort of tough. I mean, people got those shots to protect themselves. So explain to us how much you think vaccinated people could potentially be carrying and then passing the virus on. That means they need to put a mask on to protect somebody who has chosen not to get the shot.
It's very rare, but it does occur. And it's the key point here is that it occurs in those high density or high risk areas where the population who have been vaccinated only amounts to, say, 25 or 30%. If that is the number in that population, then that's where we're seeing this uptick in cases. And therefore, those people who are vaccinated are capable of having the virus in their systems, not causing severe illness or anything to that patient, but that patient, namely the vaccinated person, can infect others. And if he or she infects a non-vaccinated group of people, such as a church group, or if you go to a bar, or you're at a concert or a ball game, that's a super spreader event.
All right, Dr. Bob, as always, thank you for being here with us.
Well, let's get a check now of your morning News Now weather.
Bill Cairns, our own Ironman, is with us today. Good morning, Bill.
Good morning. So the heat, humidity, and severe storms. Those are kind of the things that we've been talking about all summer long, along with our wildfire smoke, and that's going to get our attention today. So we had that huge, record-shattering heat dome over the Northwest early in the summer. Now we're seeing one settle into the middle of the country. And we get these heat domes. This is very typical. This is not record-breaking. This is what you'd expect in the peak of summer. It's very hot from the northern plains all the way down through Florida. About 108 million people today will have a heat index that'll feel above 100 as we go throughout the afternoon hours. The worst of it there, where you see that lighter pink color, especially in sections like Mississippi. So we have excessive heat warnings there on Jackson. We have excessive heat warnings around Minneapolis. Everyone else is pretty much under a heat advisory. 41 million people under those advisories. And the hottest temperatures today, we felt like Rapid City could be 101, Minneapolis at 98. And then tomorrow, that heat begins to settle a little bit and spread to the east, where even the Carolinas will start feeling like the heat index above 100 to 105. Look at Charleston, 108. That's not comfortable. Montgomery, 108 also. St. Louis will be one of the hottest at 110. And then as we head towards the weekend, it will continue to be very warm all the way through the south. Look at Dallas, 3 3 days in a row above 100. And as far as that smoke goes, guys, we'll watch that smoke spreading through the Great Lakes. And then tonight into tomorrow, we'll watch that smoke spreading all the way into the southeast. Imagine you're in the coastline like Charleston and Savannah. You're going to have an unusual sunset because of that smoke.
They are pretty, but not good air quality.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
Bill,
oh, gosh,
you.
I can't wait to not be getting those updates anymore. Bill, thank you so much. We'll see you next hour.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.